Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing okay. My name's Helen and I'm a sound designer and I'm based here in Norfolk. And usually when I'm sound designing, I make sound effects and soundscapes and I put up speakers and I choose microphones and all of that kind of stuff. And I work in theatre and live events normally, but there's not much of that going on at the moment. So today I'm going to talk to you about making a soundscape. So normally when I make a soundscape, I'll use my portable recording device and my headphones and my library of sound effects and things like that. And I'll go out and do all these recordings and things, and I'll bring them back and I'll put them on my computer and I'll edit them using Logic or Ableton Live or Pro Tools or some kind of editing software. But not everybody has these bits of kit floating around at home. So today I've set myself the challenge of making a soundscape using my phone. So you can use a smartphone or a tablet. It's up to you. I'm using an iPhone and I've got GarageBand for the iPhone. But there are lots of Android editing softwares available as well that you can check out. And there's lots of YouTube tutorials of how to use them and things like that. So the other thing to tell you is for this soundscape, I'm making sort of like a mini documentary type, short podcasty soundscapey type thing, and I'm going to use some files that were given to me by Unlocking Our Sound Heritage. Now, Unlocking Our Sound Heritage, they're based at the Norfolk Record Office, and what they're doing is they're a team of people, and they're collecting together all of the old formats for making sound, so like cassettes, reel-to-reels, vinyls. They used to have like a thing where you'd like a wire, they record sound onto the wire. That was a very long time ago. Mini discs, all of these things. They're bringing them all together because they're all becoming obsolete. All these formats. But the stuff that's on them is brilliant and amazing, and so they're preserving it basically, and that's what they're doing at the records office. So they've given me some files to use today, and they come from a collection called The Records of Patricia Daniels, and basically Patricia and some other researchers and recordists around the 1980s time got together, and they were all recording the older generation in Norwich to find out what life was like when they were growing up, because from the early 20th century to now, like, life has changed immeasurably. Like the way that people lived then is nothing like the way that we live now, with the technology and all of that other stuff. So it's a really fascinating insight into what life was like in Norwich. So I did cheat a bit on this because there's quite a lot of files in this collection. I mean, this is 27 of the files, and they're all about 45 minutes long. And there's like a lot more of them, but these are all the ones I've focused on. The boot and shoe trade, because there was a massive boot and shoe trade in Norwich in the early 20th century. So I've just focused on those files. So I did cheat a bit, and I actually selected the pieces of the audio that I wanted to use on my computer, because I thought if I stick all of these 45-minute long interviews onto my phone's going to cry basically. So I thought I'll do that bit on the computer and then import them into my phone, into GarageBand, and then I can start to play with them and put them together. And what I found when I started to play was that there's just such amazing stories of what the boot and shoe factories were like, and how people worked, and no job security, 0 hours contracts, all of that stuff that is happening today. It happened then, there, and history does sort of repeat itself. The other thing to say is that I wanted to make like a sort of a rhythmical sort of soundscape that went with it, that sort of reflected the factories and the kinds of work that they were doing. Now, I set myself the challenge, rather than delving into the archives and finding the original sound effects that would have made those machines, that eyeletting machine and the buttonholing machine and the whatever, I thought, I'm going to set myself a challenge. I'm going to try and use objects from around my home to recreate some sort of sounds that I think are sort of atmospheric of that industry and what they might be doing. So I'll show you a few of those things now. Here's one I made earlier. So, right, so these are some of the things that I used. Hang on, there's a few more things over here. Okay, so these are some of the things that I use to make my sound effects for the shoe factory. And I know these are probably not anything like the authentic sounds that would have been happening in the factory, and there's probably a lot more mechanical machinery sounds going on. I sort of wanted to steer clear of that because sometimes that can make a sound quite heavy and quite dark, and because the recordings are very old and they're on cassette tape and they're quite hissy, I didn't want to sort of interfere too much with how they sounded, so I wanted to keep the sound effects quite light. So first of all, I use my sewing machine. I put this hole punch in. Maybe that would sound like an eyeletting machine or something like that. A simulated stapler and a stamper, and then I could have gone and got a hammer, but I quite like this sound for the hammering. And they talk about cutting. Anyway, so these are the sound effects that I use to build my soundscape, so I sort of layered those up throughout the soundscape, and I sort of added pauses and breaks in certain sounds and let other sounds carry on, partly to give space to the dialogue, and partly because I just wanted to create this idea of rhythm and movement and all that kind of stuff. So if I show you my soundscape here, you can see at the top here, this is the audio of the people talking here. I'll just go back to the beginning. And I liked all this sort of tape stuff at the beginning, with the sort of like the way the tapes are not perfect basically, and they make all these sort of weird buzzy clicky sounds. So my first attempt, actually, you can see where I've grayed it out here, was to use all the buzzy clicky sounds from the tape, but I thought it was a bit annoying in the end, so I took it out. And then if you come down here, these are all my sound effects, and you can see that I've made something very rhythmical, because you can see how I've multiplied them and sort of laid them all down. Like, so if I go to this one, so if I go track controls, and that's my hammering sound. But if I go here, this is the same sound, but I've just pitched it down. So I've gone settings, and I've gone follow, tempo and pitch, and I pitched it down 6 semitones. And this one here, this is the scissors. I've added a bit of echo, and I'm going to add a bit of reverb, just because I think it just gives it a bit of something else. So that's that. And I've also changed the treble and the bass to take a bit, it was a bit tinny, so I've taken, and you can see that more clearly here. If I show you the visual, you can see where I've changed the sound there. And I've sort of done it in short, sharp loops, because I wanted this idea of rhythm to sort of carry through. You can add instruments and things if you wanted to sort of venture into that way, or live loops as well. But I haven't done for this project, because I just wanted to keep it as the integrity of the people talking with the sound effects. So that's my soundscape. I'm really excited to play it to you. Maybe you can go away and make something yourself, like interview your relatives, or talk about something that you're interested in or what you're passionate about, or something like that. And just have a play with it. And if you get stuck, there's loads of YouTube tutorials that can help you out and things like that. So thanks for watching, and take care. Here it is.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Norwich Oral History Archive on the 18th of September 1987.
Well, I'm 84 now.
When were you born?
1904.
When you talk to my husband, talk a little louder, because he's a little bit deaf.
When did I start that? When I was 8 years old. I can remember back from that, so that would be about 1916, about 1920, when the machine age first started. And then, of course, this hand-making gradually died out, so that all you saw on street corners then was these poor old fellas who didn't have any trade at all, and they were just on a scrap heap. And instead of making the shoes like they normally made it, they made them in mass production, so that each person did one little bit all the way down the belt.
I started work when I was 14, and I got 5 shillings a week. I gave Mother 4 shillings, and I had a shilling. I had to buy me my ribbon, because you always had to have your hair tied back, and black lisle stockings.
I was there about 9 months. I asked for raise. They say you haven't been there long enough yet. So I left there and went on another boot factory.
Well, the first job I had to do was tacking on inner soles, see, which is the start of the shoe, really. They was tacked on with 3 nails, which we held in our mouths. There's no tea rates those days, so it was quite a common thing. We did used to take a lunch to put some bread or whatever you had, a sandwich, part of a sandwich in your mouth with a mouthful of nails. You know, I've done that more than once, because you forget you've got the nails in your mouth.
Well, some of the factories, you were cramped up, you know. There's so many machines, and after you'd been there a day or two, you could smell the leather when you were done.
There was a buttonhole machine, skiving machine, fold machine, ordinary machines, table work. There was an eyelet machine. Well, that used to put the eyelets in for the laces, all them sort of things. So that was all in one room. So we worked round the room like a team.
You got your clickers who start off making the opera, and they used to run round with a knife and cut out the operas, you see. Then they would go into what they call the machine room, or the closing room, and then they'd all be machined, you see, into one opera, you see, before they came into the making room, you see. So there's the clicking room, the machine room, and then you get the making room. And then they go down into the healing room, and all the heels are put on.
Yeah, I was in the shoe room, as we used to call it. It was the clean and box shoes.
Yeah, they were long hours then, they were.
Well, the clickers, what they call them clickers, they had big long knives, see? And they had boards that have to be all oily, don't they? And they cut out patterns of the shoes. They keep their fingernails long. See, because if they come round the patterns with their nose, they'd some cut the fingernails and they were the fingers. Because even though they'd cut the fingers, didn't they? When they first start, they do cut the fingers, don't they?
No tea breaks, you had to work right through.
They went into the finishing room and then put into the packing, and they were dispatched. But that's all it is as regards the making of them.
I was a faker, repair and painting shoes, which they never do now. That's all fell out.
But the chief job I had, before the sole and heel went on, I used to tack all the upper, to tack that all in on a big machine, what they call a console.
Because I don't know if anyone has seen a clicker working. He has his prick all in one hand and his knife in the other.
I was a runabout, what they called. You ran about for the room and the foam and...
The first month you're not allowed to touch a knife or anything like that. You're just the general dog's body and you run about for everyone.
But the conditions, I mean, we didn't get the same holidays they get these days. All you got was the holiday Monday, Boxing Day at Christmas, that's all, Christmas Day and Boxing Day. And you would get the August holiday.
So was there much security in your job?
Oh no, there was nothing like that. Nothing like that. You couldn't count on your work. You couldn't count and say, well, I'll be there forever. Because when they go slow, you're out. They got no work for you. And they can't pay you your money if you don't work for it.
You were picked out by the management.
And I also remember one instant when they first gave their knife and
you were picked out
showed me how to
either
do
one
it.
or two at
Well, I'm left-handed, so the way I start cutting left.
They have all sorts of work. Used to have their men's shoes, 2 days for ladies' shoes, and all sorts. We'd have 2 days of Texan. We used to have 1 week